Welcome back to the Advent Calendar House, and if you're a weird parent who lets your children listen to your podcast feed with you, you may want to get the kids out of the pool for this one as we dive into a very festive episode of the Adult Swim cartoon Sealab 2021. This is a salute to all holiday specials, but mostly the Christmas ones, and today we're kindly rewinding to 2002 to wage war on the Feast of Alvis. I am baby with a gun cooking over a floodlight, Mike Westfall, and joining me for this treacherous leap into the abyss is a miraculous miracle incarnate. Please welcome Zach Shipley. Hello, Zach.
I've crapped the buffet, and I'm happy to be here.
So glad, because this was your request, and I've only watched this once before this year, I think. Is this an annual watch for you?
This is. I'm almost ashamed to admit it, but it's like for some reason, like this is my go-to. Like I'm having trouble remembering even like other episodes of Sealab, but this one I can pull from like in a moment's notice. I'll just say praise Alvis for like no reason, like just in daily conversation.
And whoever gets it in the vicinity is your new best friend.
No one.
Oh dear.
So far,
someday. Well,
even my patient wife, who I think has watched this several times with me, still like kind of like just like it just flies over her head.
Oh, I am completely certain my wife has no idea what this is at all. She happened to have not asked me what we're recording tonight, and when I tell her, it'll be just like, "Huh? What?" So, or maybe she's a big fan. I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah.
But I feel like I didn't appreciate Sealab as much as the other shows on what was then brand new Adult Swim. Mm-hmm. It was just a block of Cartoon Network back then, kids. Once upon a time, it was Cartoon Network's Nick and Night. But my favorite was Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Oh
yeah, and that's come from a similar cloth of like the recycled animation, very basic Flash, and I think Aqua Teen Hunger Force had probably a little higher production value, but I mean that's by inches.
Right.
Sealab was kind of like in between Aqua Teens and Space Ghost in the recycled versus original.
Yeah, quick background. Sealab 2021 is a parody of Hanna-Barbera's 1972 cartoon Sealab 2020.
This is the year 2020. The place is the Challenger Seamount, the top of an underwater mountain. A complex beneath the sea.
An environmentally themed show that lasted all of 3 months and 13 episodes. Then in 2001, Adult Swim came along and gave it the Space Ghost coast-to-coast treatment, where it took those existing characters, rebooted them completely, and just made them all silly and let them cut sometimes.
Yeah, as much as cable TV would allow. I mean, certainly it went a lot further than the average, Johnny Bravo or Powerpuff Girl as it was popular on Cartoon Network at the time. But now it's aside from the rampant racism, it's pretty tame by today's standards.
So Space Ghost Coast to Coast began all the way back in 1994. And became an instant favorite of mine and a whole bunch of other people. That led to a spin-off called Cartoon Planet, which was the first thing I ever remember watching on Cartoon Network. And I loved that.
Even the Cartoon Planet ran on TBS for a while because the cable system I had in the late 90s did not have Cartoon Network. I don't think we got to like whatever 99 or something like that. But I clearly remember like in like 96 or 7 or something like that having Cartoon Planet running on TBS in the afternoons, and then they would show Powerpuff Girl shorts along with the normal like old Hanna-Barbera and Looney Tunes stuff.
Yeah, maybe that's how I got in, because I also got Cartoon Network and Comedy Central and all of those new cable channels that were popping up in the 90s pretty late in the game. I want to say 96, 97. So maybe that's it, but. Those all led to other similarly wacky shows like Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, which had everybody from Hanna-Barbera in it, and this one, which existed in its own universe that I still don't understand.
There's like almost no continuity between Sealab episodes as well. There's Sealab is destroyed and characters are killed with alarming regularity in this show. So it kind of just goes back to zero every single time.
Yet this is the one where it remains intact for all we know, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
A common thread connecting all these wacky parody shows we just mentioned is cartoonist Alex Toth, who created Space Ghost and Birdman and the original Sealab 2020. Toth died in 2006 while at his drawing table. And I couldn't find any reliable sources regarding what he thought about his old cartoons getting remixed, but I found some message board threads from like 2002 around the time this aired that are about as old as this Alvis episode, claiming he was not happy about Space Ghost Coast to Coast and thought cartoons with dark humor were garbage, but that appeared to be all hearsay.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag when you have something be repurposed for later on. I could fully respect the fact that he maybe didn't like it, but on the other hand, no one would know about Sealab 2021, or no one would know about 2020 if it weren't for 2021. This is a very it's really digging up the grave of a dead cartoon. I mean,
really is.
There's no other way to put it.
Like, thanks to TBS, they would bring back things like Space Ghost. That would air on Cartoon Express for years and years and years, and every once in a while they would throw in things like Birdman, but I had never heard of Sealab 2020 until this came along, so...
Yeah.
And for this parody of a show about scientists from the future who live in an underwater city, they've created a parody of Christmas itself. Mm-hmm. That takes a nosedive into creating a stand-in for several religions, which we'll get into later. First, let us begin with the meaning of Alvistide, as told by Sealab's Captain Hank Murphy, voiced by Harry Gause, whose credits include playing Tevye in Fiddler of the Roof on Broadway. He was Al Steele, Joan Crawford's last husband in Mommy Dearest. And he was the talking apple in a bunch of Fruit of the Loom commercials. So instead of the usual opening theme song by the band Calamine, hey Calamine, I only know you because of this, we have Captain Murphy retelling the story of the birth of Alvis.
On a frosty winter's night, a wagon appeared at the gates of Fort Klugman, carrying pioneers to the frontier. A young woman in the party called Delia was heavy with child. And though she had journeyed with the virile young men for nigh on 1 year, none had lain with her, though she was comely. And on this frosty winter's night, young Delia's water broke, almost freezing her to the seat of the wagon. And the pioneers beseeched the soldiers to grant them entrance so that she could give birth to her child in the hospital there. But due to an outbreak of syphilis among the soldiers, the hospital was full. And so there in the stable, among the feed and tack and Delia gave birth to a son, whom she called Alvis, as was her wont. And since none of the men in the party were the father, it was decided among them that the birth of this child must truly be a miracle. And it was so, for above the fort there suddenly and miraculously appeared an awesome and mighty comet, and so brilliant was its light that there came from all the tribes which the soldiers had not yet decimated, shamans. And they rode upon buffalo, as was their heathen custom, bearing gifts, offerings of whiskey and firearms. And when the shamans saw the child, they were in awe, for he glowed as if bathed in a light which was truly not of this world.
Which has been helpfully transcribed on the not at all official website of the International Church of Alvis, which I found, and which of course is powered by Blogspot. It's out there. It's got 4 entries, all dated 2007. But the most recent entry, titled The Fall of Alvis, claims he died and returned on Alvis Sunday. How, you may ask? More to follow at a later date, and that was 12 years ago, and we're still waiting. But
I feel like I have to reach out to the owners of this particular site and like let them know that there are people out here who still believe.
Yes. We wait patiently with a watchful eye. The joke here is the conceit that none of about 5 pioneer dudes of various age claim to be Alvis's father, despite smiling awkwardly at each other. That immediately reminded me of South Park and its arc of Cartman looking for his real father, and that's right down to the setting almost with the drunken barn dance. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. I'll admit I'm less knowledgeable on the South Park lore.
Okay.
This is almost my ceiling for goofy cartoons.
Okay. Oh, what a ceiling it is. But, well, and that was not too far removed from that. South Park was 1998. This was 2002. And South Park sort of helped Space Ghost open the door to Adult Swim. And here we are. So we find Captain Murphy trying to, nay, insisting on, putting together an Alvis-tied pageant in the Sealab. And basically every Christmas pageant comes with mild to medium chaos. Zach, have you ever been in a Christmas pageant?
Not a pageant per se, but certainly my kids go to public school, so it's not a Christmas thing, but it's always like a musical thing that they do every year, and that is it's always a cluster of some kind, and either because it's good, just because they're it's all kids under like 4th grade and under, and yeah.
Oh, I know it. Yep, I have kids around that age too, and even they go to an art school, so they have performing arts classes, but it has that very unique elementary school touch to everything. But I remember being in a Christmas pageant many, many years ago. I was a shepherd, and the most Charlie Brown, Shermy, barely see him again shepherd, but I think that was 1st grade, so my memory is mostly foggy. My second daughter is in 1st grade now, so it was a bit ago. But I just remember the rehearsals leading up to it being mildly chaotic. They basically start practicing at the beginning of December, so really only have 3.5 weeks. That's not a lot of time. So this one looks like they have maybe a couple of hours to put on who knows what sort of pageant.
Yeah, there's a lot of construction going around. Captain Murphy is insisting upon having a child, it's supposed to be the child savior Alvis, be lit up with some halogen bulbs, and then an electrician is insisting that there's not enough voltage and that that's going to start a fire.
They keep tripping the breaker. They have all these halogen lamps hooked up to make the comet, and that keeps tripping the fuse. And I love the tale of this comet because it's clearly been very quickly beveled in 2002 era Photoshop.
Look, them breakers ain't rated for this.
We'll cram a penny in there.
Penny will start a fire.
Look, shamans wouldn't ride buffaloes a jillion miles to see that little piece of crap comet.
That's the real joy of looking back at some of these cartoons from the early aughts. It's being able to remember where technology was at the moment. Flash animation was just really starting to get its legs, and boxing gloves. But that leads the captain to tell the electrician, just cram a penny in the breakers to keep them from tripping, and that's what he keeps saying more than once, a penny will start a fire.
Yeah. And then the mother's very concerned about the baby being exposed to fire, and he says that's okay because the blanket's made of asbestos.
Yes, and the pistol's just a little .22, couldn't hurt a flea. Little baby Cody, who doesn't glow by himself, but mom, and it's just some unnamed mother in jeans and what appears to be a studded Hot Topic belt. Hey, 2002, good to see you again. But mom seems to take issue with exposing her baby to the floodlights and asbestos.
This is about the point where the rest of the Sealab crew appears to take issue. Most notably, Dr. Quinn and White Debbie.
White Debbie, yes. I forgot she was called White Debbie because they don't really mention names here.
Well, I think she's just Debbie, but then there's also a Black Debbie, and so I insist on calling her White Debbie.
There you go.
We never do a big Alvis time thing.
Because it's offensive to non-Alvians.
Voiced by Kate Miller, who's played a lot of one-off background characters, but notably several famous women on Celebrity Deathmatch, including Sarah Michelle Gellar, Susan Lucci, and Heather Locklear. And currently she's married to John DiMaggio, the voice of Bender.
Well, that's basically cartoon voice royalty then,
Pretty much.
Yeah, she's got about like 800 voice credits on IMDb for various TV shows and characters and such. So yeah, she's obviously somebody who works a lot.
And then Dr. Quentin Quinn is voiced by Brett Butler, who is neither the baseball player nor the woman from Grace Under Fire. This Brett Butler is mostly a sound editor and mixer, but he's also involved in sketch comedy, so he's got a few things on IMDb. But I was surprised. I opened it up and was like, oh, this is all sound editing.
Yeah, it's really speaks to the kind of slapdash nature of the early Adult Swim shows, and that they frequently did not use professional voice actors, just merely somebody who could read lines reasonably well or do a silly voice.
Right. And they have a few choice names here. They had, we'll get to more as they come to them, but they got Harry Gause to do Captain Murphy. And between that and another voice we'll get to later, that pretty much used up all the voice budget.
Yeah, Harry Gause is really the kind of the glue that holds this show together, in my opinion. Oh, yes. He passed in 2003, and it took the wind out of the sails for this show. Because they still continue to make episodes, I think, for another year or two, but just wasn't the same without Captain Murphy. They introduced like a Captain Murphy's son or something like that, and a different actor. And I appreciate when shows try to do that, because certainly he was not the only laugh getter on the show. I mean, one of the best episodes, aside from this one, is when Dr. Quinn and Stormy are hurtled back in time and create this kind of weird time feedback loop. And Captain Murphy's barely in that one. But it just didn't seem to kind of keep up without him, because his voice delivery, I mean, it's on the same level as Space Ghost. You can only have like one guy who does that. Right. And I appreciate that they didn't try to like pass off somebody else as like a replacement voice actor. They just kind of retired the character, but yeah, it just wasn't the same after Harry Gause left.
But Quinn and White Debbie are our two voices of reason, informing us Alvis Tide celebrations are largely considered offensive, and that only about a third of the crew is Alvian. Well, that's a lot, considering the religious spectrum of the Sealab crew seems to be a lot closer to an even distribution than most countries today. And as Quinn points out, religious tolerance is a mainstay of the Sealab Charter, which is the captain's argument for having an Alvis Tide feast. Since the other religions already had theirs, we'll run by those in a minute, but I wanted to talk about a little more decoration and the other pomp going on with this pageant. Have you ever seen a live nativity where they bring in actual live animals?
Never animals. I mean, I've seen like the live nativity where you have like the people set up, and out in front of a church. I live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where there's a lot of there's a church on every corner, and there's a bar on every other corner. It's kind of weird dichotomy, but it's also quite cold during December, so I don't see too much the live nativity. But certainly people get way into Christmas, and you do see nativity scenes a lot there. But I've never seen with live animals. I have to say that seems like you have to be several latitude lines further south to get that.
Well, I haven't seen one in Florida, which would be a little too much with the heat.
Yeah.
But growing up in New Jersey, I saw one that they brought into the church, and they brought in maybe one donkey, a calf, a sheep or two, I think. Smelled lovely. But if things aren't already surreal enough in Sealab, they have somehow procured live buffalo for the pageant in the science community thousands of feet below the surface of the ocean. Including one that gets stuck in an elevator with a drunk and aggravated crew member, Stormy Waters, who we mentioned earlier very quickly, voiced by political analyst Ellis Hennigan.
Shut up! Get in there! Shut up!
Who, to get as minimally political as possible, I've seen him described as Fox Noob's liberal pundit Ellis Hennigan. So he's one of those guys they bring in so they can say, "You've heard from both sides."
I did not realize that that's who voiced Stormy.
I had no idea either until I'm going through this IMDb list. I'm like, wait a minute, he's another thing.
Yeah, it's like lots of like, himself on Huckabee, himself on Judge Napolitano, himself on the O'Reilly Factor. Wow, that's really interesting. Okay, well, Stormy's pretty minimal in this episode, so we don't have to really dig into what he's about anyway. No. He basically just keeps hitting his head on the doorway because he's riding this buffalo and screaming "Shut up!" because he's already fighting drunk for Alvis time.
Oh yeah, and every once in a while we cut back to Stormy stuck in the elevator and the buffalo shouting nonsense. But
yeah,
that's it. But let's go through this quick list of made-up religions that they created for this one episode.
Only about a third of the crew is Alvian, sir.
Come on, now that's just crap, right?
About 20% are Shikra, 15% are Mandu.
6% Hempis, 2% Krebish, and
Blia. The Krebs already had their Alvis time.
The 9 Knights of Krebula?
Yeah, nobody busted their chops.
Because religious tolerance is a mainstay of the Sealab charter.
They're rattled off pretty quickly, but luckily we have TV tropes to make the connections as to which is an allegory of what. We have Shikra, which includes a month-long observance of Shikradan, so that's the Islam equivalent. We have Mandu, which is Hinduism. There's Hempism, which isn't explained further, but you can figure that out. And then there's Krebism, and it's 9 Nights of Krebula, which are supposed to stand in for Hanukkah. In fact, we learn at the very end of the episode that Alvis was Krebish, naturally. And then there's Malka, which TV Tropes informs me is the Wiccan equivalent. Well, and that's right, because Captain Murphy, we find out that Sealab's radio operator Sparks is Malkin.
Malkins don't believe in hell.
You're a witch?
Malka's not about witchcraft.
No.
He's voiced by Bill Lobley, the current voice of Officer Dibble from Top Cat, apparently. Brought Top Cat back and made him CGI and put him in a movie that I've never heard of until now.
Yeah, Sparks is the least tolerant of this entire thing and is happy to. While he's Malkin, he kind of fills the role of the average Reddit browsing atheist, happy to point out all of the inconsistencies or bad things about the Alvian religion.
Right, and Captain Murphy actually tries to fire him for calling out Alvis.
Mm-hmm.
Saying, how can you worship that guy? He killed a man. Hey, only for revenge.
Alvis killed for your sins.
Yes. But Quinn tells him he can't fire someone based on religious beliefs. Mm-hmm. Sparks gets hit with my favorite insult of this whole thing.
It's a baby with a freaking gun cooking over a floodlight.
Hey, why are you still here, Harry Potter?
I want to start fake mockingly calling people Harry Potter with no basis.
Yeah, it's not like he had like glasses on or anything like that. It was just...
I get it that Malka's supposed to be the Wiccan equivalent, so he's calling him a witch, but it was just that I forgot that was the joke, and I was like, wait, oh.
It's a real reach, yeah.
I'm going to try and steal it. And lastly, there's apparently a religion called Chthonic, which TV Trope says is the Catholic stand-in. Mm-hmm. Based on the captain's wrong assumption that it's the religion of engineer Marco. And it's Eric Estrada.
Who told you I was Chthonic?
Danny, you're a Spaniard, so
A Spaniard?
Oh, hell.
Now you did it.
A Spaniard?
Hey, whoa.
I'm not from Spain. In fact, 85% of Spanish-speaking people in the world are not from Spain.
Hey, look, I don't want to get into a big thing.
And all Latinos aren't Chthonic.
Eric Estrada was a real VIP of this show. He always... it feels like he wouldn't be the funniest one, but he always comes in with like really great line reads. His characters always says like really wild stuff. It's just great to know that Estrada, despite being like kind of like a 70s heartthrob because of Chips and stuff, was more than willing to just kind of jump into it and accept that this is a really silly show, and he needs to be as into it as Harry Goz is, than or any of the other actors. I really appreciate his performance as Marco. It's him. It kind of holds this whole thing together. When you have like a more established actor, versus some of say the audio engineers just reading lines.
Right. No, it was great to see that he's not just here getting paid and phoning it in. He really brought, and this was right around that first wave of nostalgia from the 80s and with reaching its peak. In fact, VH1's first run of I Love the 80s premiered this same week in December 2002.
We're really good at these dates, I have to say. I mean, I know you do your research, but you'd swear that you just remembered this.
It's all just Googling, and I have notes. There's nothing remembering about anything. It's just I looked it up and remembered. But no, Captain Murphy thought Marco was phonic because he also thought he was a Spaniard. He's not from Spain, and he gets so upset that he goes to beat up Stormy and exits Stormy.
And yeah, again, this is this is where I go wow, this is like, I know they're calling it out as being racist, but isn't it just actually just racist? I can't
much.
Tell.
I would not say that this holds up to the standards we expect of things today, but
right, it's like it goes. I mean, to use the South Park thing again, it's like it tries to go so offensive as to be beyond offensive and therefore beyond anyone actually being offended by it or trying to object. It feels like the viewers just expect to go well, yeah, that's of course, yeah, they're taking the piss out of everybody and that's it.
Yeah, I think, and again, it's 2002. 9/11 happened a year ago, so we're all trying to find what is and is not funny again. I feel like still at this point a year later.
Yeah, it's not quite. It's more Gen X humor than millennial humor because it still finds groups to make fun of. Certainly, I think Adult Swim has more morphed into that more millennial humor where everything is just really, really bizarre and more. And there's not that. There's not any one person you can pin anything on, or any group really.
No, not anymore. But so no, it doesn't hold up. But I've said more than once, nothing should hold up because we should be growing anyway.
Nostalgia is a crutch, and I say that with all due reverence to a nostalgia podcast.
And that's all of them. So Quinn and Dupree try fruitlessly to explain to Captain Murphy the Feast of Alvis is only for a minority of people. The largest minority, but a minority just the same. And that's when the lights go out again, and the electrician finally concedes into keeping it on with a penny, and now we have a crying baby whose mom is about to leave with little Cody. And when a now outraged captain tries to mock the baby's sissy name, we find out Cody's a girl. And also, Mom's called social services about the whole asbestos and gun thing. And it's right around this time that the health inspector shows up in the underwater Sealab out of nowhere to find the captain because his Alvis-Tide buffet has tested positive for fecal matter.
Hey, which one of you is Captain Murphy?
That's Murphy right there.
Happy holidays, sir.
Totally.
All right, what do you want?
County Health Inspector, your buffet tested positive for fecal matter. We're going to have to give you a little fine there, but have a happy Alvis time.
Fine?
It's at this point, it's kind of remarkable that it's taken, 7 to 8 minutes to actually get to a poop joke?
Yeah, good point. We're about 8 minutes into this 11-minute show. I forgot how short these were.
Yeah, no commercial break. You just they would have a show and then a commercial and then another show and then a commercial, and that's how they did the typical 22-minute or whatever Adult Swim bits. They'd have just 2 11-minute cartoons.
I feel like it was kind of, I don't want to say revolutionary at the time, but it was very different even for that late in the game. But
it made hell programming the DVR, but
yeah, well. I didn't have a DVR back then. This was all, you were either putting this on VHS or you were never seeing it again.
Yeah, it's true that this did kind of predate the DVR. I'm now mixing up the time because 2001 I was taping stuff.
Yeah.
I would tape Cowboy Bebop because that came on at midnight after Sealab.
That was the one they would interrupt with commercials.
Yeah, well, because it was a imported anime. That was a full half hour or whatever.
Yeah, you'd have to wait for the DVD season to come out, and that would be like $40 for a half hour's worth of episodes.
Yeah, but with a lot of rewatchability. I mean, as I said, I keep coming back to this one, and I don't know why. It's really, I think it's because it's just the weirdest amongst the weird Sealab episodes, and of course a great performance from Harry Goss as Captain Murphy, and just like everything. There's no Sealab lore. And yet, this one did a lot of world building very quickly with the various religions, and like this is where Captain Murphy's belief system comes from, and so it just as a result, it just gives you a lot more insight into why Captain Murphy is the way he is. It's because he was raised in Albion, so of course he has these strong beliefs about how everyone else should act and and how they should behave. So he believes in revenge and drinking.
It does explain a lot, and it was very strange and wonderful to go back, like just Googling for Feast of Alvis references and finding these old blogs dedicated to this one joke of an episode.
Mm-hmm.
I found a LiveJournal page that had a whole bunch of those animated icons with just Feast of Alvis quotes on them. There were about 20 of them on there. That's now in the show notes because it still exists. One of the last LiveJournal pages that still remains.
I was actually cleaning up bookmarks on my Chrome browser the other day and found like my LiveJournal page, and that is not going to show notes. That's a little too embarrassing for me personally.
Yeah, I deleted mine a very long time ago, but then I went back and was just like, man, I regretted that because there was some okay stuff in there, and I could have just deleted what I wanted to delete. But there was a time when I was really bad at archiving stuff, and now I'm kicking myself for it. So save your work, kids.
Yeah, I'm on the verge of like deleting all my tweets and then like just saving the good ones.
That's a project.
Yeah. Well, I backed it up. I downloaded the whole archive, and yeah.
There you go.
I thought to myself, if I take every single good tweet I wrote over the last like 12 years, I'd probably have a solid half-hour stand-up.
There you go. That's pretty good.
Only took me 12 years to write it. I'll write it all down. 12 years of
good
nonstop.
Material takes time to grow.
Failed one-liners.
There you go. Well, it's around this time that the fire starts because of that penny, and everything just goes to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, Captain Murphy is thrown to the floor by a buffalo, resulting in a large lump on his head. Maybe it's the lump, or it's a comically large lump that they had to kind of Photoshop on this existing character model's head. And then they put a patch of hair just on top of the lump.
It was a real stretch to do that. It looks like a mountain with a snow cap. It's so weird.
It's so ridiculous, and it's just like, this is a great cap on this whole thing.
Mm-hmm. And then Alvis appears.
Yes, maybe it's the lump, or perhaps a miracle that takes form of the angelic Alvis himself, who informs the captain he has forgotten the true meaning of Alvis time.
Neither is it ham nor pomp. Nay, the true meaning of Alvis time is drinking. Drinking in revenge.
Well, I got eggnog, but I don't think it's enough to get really loaded.
Crap screamer!
More of a liqueur.
Behold!
And then with a poof, the table of eggnog is transformed into a table of whiskey bottles.
And in the background, like the cow is like on fire.
That's my favorite part. I made that my little Skype avatar for this one episode, people.
Oh yeah, I just didn't even notice that. Oh my god. Oh.
That's going on. And Alvis invites the captain to drink with him until such time as we are fighting drunk.
Then we shall find and beat the asses of the non-believers who ruined my feast.
Especially whoever crapped the buffet.
No, sir, that was me.
Alvis bless us, everyone.
So it's treated as a blessing from Alvis that there's fecal matter in the buffet.
Alvis bless us, everyone.
Mm-hmm.
See, and that's it, except for during the credits scene where medic Dr. Verjay is the one who informs the captain he's got a concussion and probably saw none of that. But then who crapped the buffet?
Yeah, I guess it's an unanswered question here.
It's an Alvis time miracle.
Unless you consider maybe there's the low rent caterers that Captain Murphy no doubt hired to put together this whole thing, because
it was himself or the Buffalo, who knows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Buffalo is actually probably it could have been Stormy. I mean, he was already drunk. He probably doesn't remember.
Yeah, but Dr. Verjay is voiced by Adam Reed, creator of the Sealab 2021 concept, and also later Archer, doing a terrible Indian accent.
Yes, the concussion could cause you to hallucinate and see all kinds.
He was real, I'm telling you. We got drunk together.
Also, a good call for problematic early 2000s shows.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's not quite Apu, but it's on the same level.
It's pretty much there.
It's actually it's exactly Apu now that I think about it.
Right down to the captain just dismissing what he has to say about Alvis was actually Krebish, to him just being a Mandu. And we're done. Short but to the point, some point.
And so I'm fond of referring to any holiday dinner as being a Feast of Alvis, personally.
Extravaganza.
It's just so it's so bizarre to me, and my family's rather young, and we don't we're not at a point where we're hosting any holiday dinner. So to have anybody over, it's always like this is the Feast of Alvis or whatever. It's I'm not inflicting this upon like grandparents or anything like that. It's just something silly I say, and it just flies over my kid's head because it's probably another 10 years before they watch it. By the time they watch it, they're gonna. Oh my gosh, there's just no way they're going to be entertained by this.
This is the worst.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts about the Feast of Alvis?
Just, that it's funny. It's just really the entire story at the beginning. And I know that's been included is one of the funniest things I can think of from the early Adult Swim days. The shamans bringing whiskeys and firearms. It's the Book of Mormon through an even more bizarre lens.
Yeah. There's the Albion equivalent. Oh, that makes perfect sense now. Wow. Now I'm seeing everything in a whole new light. Well, thank you for suggesting this one. It was fun talking to you about it.
Yeah, there's layers here. That's what I'm saying. This is not Snoopy. This is deep.
Very, very deep under the water. Well, Zach, if people want to crap on your buffet, where can they find you on the internet?
They can find me at Zach Shipley on Twitter. I'm also Zach Shipley, ZACSHIPLEY. .com. They can hire me in order to sell their house in the Milwaukee area. Oh. I also provide entertainment services as a wedding or party DJ. So if you need an open format DJ, be sure to give me a call.
All right. Well, show notes for this episode and all the rest are at adventcalendar.house. You can say hi on Twitter at adventcalhouse. So, till tomorrow, for Zach Shipley from beneath the glow of a halogen lamp comet wrapped in swaddling asbestos, be careful of that icy patch. The Advent Calendar House is part of the Christmas Podcast Network, located conveniently at ChristmasPodcastNetwork.com.
Ho, 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 ho! Merry Christmas! Greetings, holiday shoppers. I'm Joseph Wade, and I host a podcast called Christmas Creeps. My band of merry mischief makers and I dissect holiday movies and specials all year round in search of the true meaning of Christmas. So whether you can't resist the urge to watch Home Alone in June, or you worship at the altar of mutant killer snowmen, Christmas Creeps is the podcast for the Grinch in all of us. Check us out at ChristmasCreeps.com or wherever you download podcasts.
Next time on the Advent Calendar House...
Ringle, ringle, coins when they mingle make such a lovely sound. 2 guineas and tuppence and threepence and bob make my ears tingle and keep my heart throbbing.